And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon, and today I am talking with Daniel Kopp. Daniel, thanks for spending some time with me, brother.
I'm very excited to share. Been a listener and now excited to share with your listeners as well.
Awesome. Well, it is going to be a great conversation, Daniel. When I read his bio and different things, Daniel, I thought, man, we are like bonded brothers already. We've got a lot in common. We're both followers of Christ. I just found out we both host podcasts. He's got a couple podcasts. Daniel is the founder of Wise Stewardship Financial Planning. Okay, and I love that name. He is a veteran. He is a widow. He is remarried, and he's a financial therapist. He helps people turn pain into purpose when it comes to money. And you've just got a different perspective on money, on planning and things. And I'm just, Daniel, I'm excited just to kind of unpack all of this because you hit some heartstrings with my life and where I've been. But I tell you what, as we jump into that deep end, why don't you tell us, Daniel, how in the world did you get doing what you are doing today?
There is a lot there, and we won't cover it all,
Okay.
but we'll cover the high points there. You mentioned in my bio my personal experience. So, what I do now as a profession is a combination of my personal kind of lived experience with the things that I've gone through, the trials, the tribulations, the valleys that God has led me through, but also now the kind of the professional expertise to help. So, yes, I was an officer in the Air Force for a while, and I was married to my wife, Sarah, at the time. She had a lot of health issues, and ultimately I became her full-time caregiver before she ultimately went into hospice and then passed away in late 2017. That had caused my Air Force career to kind of slow down, take a back seat. I was getting ready to get out and launch into ultimately what I do now as a financial planner, financial advisor, financial therapist, but got mixed up along with the grief journey. So
Yeah.
going through kind of that initial period, what do I do now? How do I rebuild the pieces of my life? Because I was only 31 at the time. And thanks to some help from my mentors, from spiritual counselors, from good friends and colleagues, things like that, ultimately took that, and like you said, trying to form pain into purpose to now go and walk alongside other people. So in my firm, I specialize in serving three groups of people: young widows, typically those in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, kids still in the picture, never been the household CFO before, dealing with some
Hmm.
financial anxiety in addition to grief and trying to figure out what's next. I also work with a lot of active duty military, mostly officers, often super aggressive savings on the path to early financial independence. And then lastly, a group that combines those two, we call those Gold Star spouses or Gold Star widows, those who have lost a spouse in the line of duty. So that was what I do. I'm a certified financial planner professional, and mixing all those competencies together to help serve those communities.
That's awesome. Wow. That's well said. I was just taking notes and thinking about these different things, and oh my goodness, the young widows, yeah, they've never been the CFO of their family. They're dealing with many times children and trying to put all the pieces together, and they need wise counsel. And I mean, don't take this wrong, but gosh, who better to do that than somebody who's been there, right? Somebody who's walked the journey, who has all these resources and all that. And then, okay, so let's talk about one of the things that people don't think about, Daniel, when we talk about losing a spouse, is they don't understand the grief that happens there. Yes, it's painful and all that, but it's the grief during that process. I mean, you got a funeral to plan and all of this, and you're trying to figure out, especially if the husband is the one who's passed away. Now you've got to figure out, wow, what do I do for income and all of that. Talk a little bit about just I think the unique dynamics of widowhood.
Yeah, there's a lot there. One is the grief anticipatory. Like, is this expected? Was it drawn out? Like in my case, knowing that Sarah was going to die and going to hospice versus an unexpected death, right? That
Right.
sudden health event, that sudden accident or something like that. Because that really changes a lot about how the grief journey goes. Grief journeys are unique because everyone's love and relationship and background and experience is unique. But for the vast majority of people going through that, they experience what, commonly called brain fog. So
Mm,
everything becomes hard and difficult. Like in my personal example, I love to read. And for about 2 years, I could not hardly pick up a book. It
yeah.
impacts everybody in different ways, but it just affected by making things, even the simplest tasks, difficult.
Yeah.
difficult to plan for the future, having to walk through, all the uncertainty. Sadly, in our modern day, there's a lot of administrivia that comes with death. The estate settlement, even a plan that's really well done, can just bring with it a mountain of paperwork and slogging through the bureaucracies to get that all done and taken care of. And that's if a plan is done, right? I think
Right.
the latest statistic I saw said somewhere around 2/3 of Americans don't have an estate plan completed. That's not having wills or powers of attorney, and maybe not a revocable living trust and documents set up. So I'd say over half of the clients that I work with as widows are coming in trying to clean up the mess where no plan was even created. Maybe even these conversations weren't had as husband and wife
Yeah.
beforehand, even.
Wow. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. And let's encourage some men out there to take action, because, as you know, I shared a story out of my life that I got a call from a friend of mine in the middle of the night, and her husband had just passed away from a heart attack, right? The unexpected one. And they'd done not a lot of planning. And so I had to jump in and help her with the funeral and help her with the planning and get her finances in order. She'd been homeschooling mom for 20 years. And I remember she looked at me, she's like, Michael, I don't want to go back to work. And I was sitting
Yeah.
here going, okay,
Yeah.
Lord, how do I make that happen? So, and out of all of that, I wrote a book called Walking with Your Widow to challenge men to do that planning ahead of time. So, talk with us about the importance of that, and what could a man do to begin the journey of planning, and why is that so important?
Well, first recognize that, people talking about estate planning is not exactly the most fun subject. For whatever reason, we combine money and death in the same topic. In our Western culture, it's very much a taboo subject. We don't generally talk about it. Like, we don't get around with our bros and say, hey, brother, how's your estate plan?
That's right, exactly.
So recognize if you feel a little bit of discomfort talking about this or hearing us talk about it, you're in good company, right?
That's right.
So work through that, right? This is a gift of love that cares for the people in your life, right? A well thought out plan is about making your wishes known ahead of time. Estate planning is usually about control, right?
Yeah.
Decisions that you do or do not want to happen. Because if you don't have an estate plan that you have created, guess what? You already have one. It's
That's
just
right.
decided by the laws of your state and a nameless, faceless bureaucracy and probate judge.
That's right.
Okay. So having that taken care of ahead of time is just, yes, it's a little bit of work. Yes, it's a little bit of discomfort, but it's a way to care for those. Last thing I'll say is some people get overwhelmed by the idea of this has to be the perfect plan. No,
Yeah.
an estate plan, like any kind of part of a financial plan, is the best plan today, knowing that life's going to evolve and change in the future.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to say, because we put ours in place a number of years ago, and then we've updated it. In a year and a half, we moved from Arkansas to Kentucky, right? And so we're updating it, and so it's in an aspect, it's a living document. It moves and changes with you and all of that, and so but the biggest thing is we've got one, and I'm glad I'm on the little 1/3% of Americans who actually have one. That's
Yes.
good. That's good. So let's talk about, you work with a lot of military families, or actually around the world, because of your
Yes.
background and things. Do they have any unique circumstances because they're in the military, or is it still just the aspect of they're dealing with setting up the plan ahead of time, the financial plan, which includes an estate plan, but you do a lot more than just that, right?
That's right. So within, anytime you've got a specialized set of, benefits or financial questions. And I guess for the listeners, like thinking about like building a service model or a marketing plan, when you serve a niche, it gets that much easier to communicate in the
Yeah.
marketing language and in the service, right? I don't have to go look up the questions about things like the thrift savings plan or the military survivor benefit plan. I know that because I've already answered it 100 plus times, right? And so you get scaling from the standpoint of the ability to serve a market over and over again. So in this particular case, right, there's a specific host of benefits that only apply to active duty military. There's another set of benefits that apply to like the reserves or guard. And knowing the niche expertise allows me to be more efficient, to serve them better, to give more personalized advice because I don't have to spend time researching. And certainly in marketing and attracting those ideal clients, right? We've done it 100 times. We can share those impact stories. We can put it out on social media and our website. So again, that's the beauty of serving a community like this. Yes, because they do face unique challenges. They're moving regularly, right? Their spouses are facing unemployment or underemployment challenges, right? They're making decisions about, do I stay in for the pension? Do I get out? If I get out, what are the benefits? How do I plan for all that kind of stuff? So yes, it's very helpful to have that kind of focused, specialized expertise.
Yeah. And to have somebody who has that expertise, not from books only, but from living it out and the
Hmm.
experience
Yeah.
of being in the military, you understand the lingo and all that, versus another financial advisor who's just learned about the military and I mean, they could be really good, right? But when you live something out, it just gives you a depth of knowledge and understanding that communicates, I guess, more at the heart level than the head level. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, you've talked about this in your podcast and your marketing, which is all about this idea of credibility, right? How do you establish credibility? Even when we're talking about the idea of grief or grief literacy, right? The ability to say, I get it because I've been there. I know what it's like, right? There's a level of trust that's characterized at that. Certainly in the military, there's a whole language and culture all its own that if you're not in that or having come from that, yeah, it'd be very difficult to break into that. So again, listeners, like you think about like, what is it your background? Where's your story? Where's your tribe? What's the language and the cultural competency and the ability to sit across that proverbial table from the people you want to serve and say, I get it. I know what it's like, because that builds enormous trust and credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go in a direction. Um, Going back to working with an elderly couple, okay? Let's say
Mm-hmm.
ex-military, and or a recently widowed woman, okay? And here's where I want to go, Daniel. What's the value of you being a fee-only advisor versus you not being a fee-only? Unpack that because you talked about being a financial therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those two really can tie together in a lot of ways because of the counsel and the way you approach everything. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll start with the compensation model because that might be unfamiliar to some of your listeners here. Within financial services, this can get quite opaque in how people get compensated. Ultimately, I made the decision to go the fee only route. So, as an RIA, registered investment advisor, I only earn money from my clients. That means I don't take commissions or kickbacks or any kind of other um, funding methods, right? The idea there is to reduce conflicts of interest. So again, if I'm making a product recommendation, I'm doing it regardless of what compensation versus selling a particular product. Now, there are ways around that. There are good ethical professionals, but it can introduce problems. And I often see that in clients that come to me having worked with people. So just clarity on how the professional that you're working with is getting compensated. Nobody walks onto a used car lot thinking that the person sitting across the table from is advising them what's in their best interest, right? You
Right.
go in forewarned, forearmed, knowing that this is a little bit adversarial, maybe competitive, maybe sitting with different motives advantage versus going into that same financial advisor office and not understanding that, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's why I went this route. Now with the financial therapy angle, that's a relatively new discipline. So it's a something that's originated in the last 10 to 15 years. If you want to go look it up, you can learn more about that through the Financial Therapy Association, the FTA. And it's the idea of borrowing from mental health practitioners. So, mental health counselors and therapists who have been using techniques and talking about our feelings and our emotions, but very rarely talking about money, right? And then
Right.
the other side, we've got our financial professionals who've been talking about dollars and cents and 401k plans and retirement goals and college funding and not really delving into the emotions. So the idea is we're going to meld the two together. So I am not a therapist who I'm not licensed.
Right.
I'm not attempting to treat, prescribe, or work on that side, but I'm using techniques that we know work well from the world of mental health and learning how to be empathetic and applying those to money. Because as we know, money is complicated, money is
And very
challenging.
and very emotional too.
Yes, right. We all have different family of origins. We've got backgrounds. We've got different belief systems. We mingle those together in a marriage. We show up and like, wait a minute, you have a completely different view about this. So how do we unpack that, right? What happens if that's standing in the way of our financial goals? What
Yeah.
kind of household do we have that we're raising our children in? What's the money culture that we're creating, right? And it goes back to being intentional and understanding that. So knowing where you come from, the money story piece of that is
Hmm.
integral to knowing where you're at today so you can get where you want to go in the future.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm glad this financial therapy discipline has come up. You're the first one I've heard actually use those words together, and it makes so much sense because we are so tied to money emotionally from the very beginning, regardless of what perspective we come from. It's an emotional thing, And to be able to sit with somebody who understands and can talk and to listen and to ask questions and to help, I think really clients get a grip for themselves to go, oh, is that why I do that? Is
Yeah.
very, very helpful in a discussion with a marriage or something. But also, you talked about kids, raising kids. It trickles down, right? And you need to be intentional. And I love that aspect of the therapy, the financial therapy, but I also love the aspect of fee only, because when you're sitting with a couple, when you're sitting with a widow, trust is paramount. And when they can understand that you don't dare I say, you don't have a dog in the fight because you've been paid already, and you're on their side to go, here's what I'm seeing, here's what you've told me, here's a pathway to get you there. Maybe here are two or three. Let's talk about these. And
Yeah.
knowing that everything's good and above board and everything, that has to put them at ease, because what you do, man, is very complex. From those of us who are outside of it,
Yes.
oh my goodness. So we need somebody that we can totally trust and go, okay, help me, Daniel. Walk me through this, right?
Yeah, it brings that idea of irreducible complexity, which is our financial plan, to the simplicity, right? Because my goal is to sit here and listen to what's important to you. And I call that aligning money with your values, right? And
Mm,
that's understanding how you got here today. Like,
yeah,
what's your first memory of money? That's interesting. Tell me more about that. Where have you felt the most proud of your money successes? Where do you feel shame? Like, what are the things that you enjoy spending or giving? Right? Because that allows me to then give advice that's personalized,
yeah,
that's tailored to them, and that moves them towards where they want to go in the future, while recognizing the situation here in the present.
yeah, absolutely. And I love what you just said. There's is asking questions and listening. And so many times when people meet with a financial advisor, they're okay, Daniel, what should I do? And the right answer is I have no idea until I talk with you, right? Because it's really, you're just facilitating what they want with tools that you got in your toolbox in a way that makes sense for each individual that you're working with, right?
Yeah. That's why personal financial planning is one, perhaps a little bit harder to find within the financial services fee only makes up a small minority of that. But
Mm-hmm.
there's growing awareness and recognition of that. But two, also that, good financial planning is not necessarily cheap. So this is something like I've encountered, and maybe those listeners resonates within you. Is like, wow, that sounds really cool. And then they see, what a relationship one-on-one might cost at that. It's like, ooh, that's a little bit versus broker. So again, knowing what are you trying to solve for and then recognizing what you're getting in the end. I always tell people when they're paying my fee, right? This only makes sense as long as you're receiving more in value than what you pay in the fee. And that should
Right.
be evaluated regularly.
Absolutely. And to realize that when you work with somebody like Daniel, it's not just the ROI and the right investment. It's really the relationship, which has to come before all of that, to go, is this somebody I can trust? Is this somebody I can talk with? Because ideally, when you're in a relationship like this, Daniel, with somebody like you, you're not just doing your annual Pru review as it was when I was a kid, an annual review with a client. Hopefully, you're doing maybe a monthly or a, hey, Daniel, here's what happened. What do I do? Or, hey, Daniel, I just got a call from my grandson who wants to go to college and they need money. Where can I get it? It's
Yeah.
that type of relationship, right?
Yeah. It's a thinking partner
I love,
because yes, it's also a mirror, right? You telling me what's important to you and then reflecting it back and then translating that into the tax code allows you to do this,
yes,
or this recommendation over here moves you close to that goal at the trade-off of over here. I always tell clients, that there's that tension between spending and saving, right? Every dollar saved is ultimately meant to be spent or given away in the
yes,
future. So how do we balance that tension, especially with our young families who are trying to make memories and invest in their kids' lives and things like that? Shockingly, probably a lot of my clients who are still in the saving accumulation stage come to me and I tell them, what, based on where you're at today, you could probably save a little bit less. And their jaws like fall down. Like, what financial planner says you could save a little bit less?
yeah,
Especially for my super saver clients, I call them, like, that's a very interesting piece
yes,
of this. It goes back to the psychology of money, right?
mhm,
We see it differently because money is not really about the dollars and cents. It's the hopes, the fears, the dreams that we attach to to each of those. And sometimes we get in our own way. So my wife and I, Anna and I, we have our own financial planner because I get in my own way, because I need a neutral thinking partner in our
Yeah.
relationship, and because I like to show up as just me, not Daniel, the financial planner, who also has to run her own financial plan. So
That's
this
right.
idea, like physician, heal thyself, or the cobbler's children have no shoes, right? Common phrases that work within our professions
Absolutely.
of, hey, you have to do your own work first. And that means I, as the financial planner, also have to do that. This goes to the idea from therapy, which is transference and countertransference, right? How do I not project my own stuff onto the
Yeah.
client and let it impact the relationship too?
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. In marketing, we always say that the business owner is uniquely unqualified to make good decisions for their own company.
Yes.
I have marketing coaches and business coaches for my company because I'm too close to it, right? Now, Daniel, I can look in your business and tell you exactly what you should do. But for my company, I need help. And that's exactly what you just said. And I love that. I don't know if I've ever heard another financial advisor say, I have another financial advisor for me because it's so
Yes.
good. And I'm certain you learned something from your financial advisor that might help you with your clients to go, you know what? I was told this and it helped me. That's brilliant. And
Yeah.
that comes from a very humble standpoint, right? And that's very wise to do. Hence, wise stewardship financial plan. I love how you pulled
Yes.
that together. Talk a little bit about the genesis of that name. A little bit, wise stewardship. What's the heartbeat behind that?
Stewardship has always been an important concept to me. Going back to, even just the Proverbs, where it talks about like this idea of we are in charge of things in this life, whether it's our families, our businesses, our income, our resources, our time, our energy, right? To invest for things beyond this temporal life, but with
Right.
a focus on eternity. So I put that in there with the nod. And there was another stewardship financial planning. So I had to make it wise stewardship
I
financial
like it.
planning.
Yeah, that's
Couldn't
good.
get around somebody else who already had one of the names. And it just is a subtle homage, a nod to people who are in the know, right? I have a lot of secular clients, people who don't have a
Huh.
particular Christian faith that shared with me, and that's fine. I'm happy to serve everyone. But for those who know, they're like, Daniel gets it, right? And it goes back to the idea of speaking the language,
Yeah,
attracting the right ideal fit people in
yeah.
every aspect of how your business shows up in the world.
That's right. Yeah. Well, this could easily turn into a marketing episode, so we're gonna I'll stop. But Daniel, I mean, you bring a lot to the table. You from your experiences, your background, serving military families, serving widows. Those two right there um, means a lot. And there are lots and lots of people in that category who are probably searching for a trusted counselor, a trusted friend, a trusted advisor. So if you, as you're listening to this, if that's not you, who's coming to mind right now? Because we all know them. They might be at church, they might be at the club, they might be at work. Who do you know? Daniel works with people all over the country, all over the world. He's available to talk with them, to serve them if possible, to help them. So, Daniel, how can somebody find you, connect with you? What would be somebody's like first next step?
Well, I'm most active on all the social platforms on LinkedIn. I'm guessing that's probably where most of your listeners show up as well. So I'd love to take connection requests there. Feel free to message me there if there's some way I could help or connect you with a fellow professional, especially in the Financial Therapy Association. There are many of us who serve other niches besides my own. And then my website, wisestewardshipfp.com would be the other place.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to grab those, have those down in the show notes as well, so that as you're listening to the, and I'd really encourage our listeners to just, really pause, rewind this thing to the beginning and listen again now with a set of new ears and new eyes, because of a lot of what we've talked about is going to settle in differently. And as you're listening to it, just keep in mind, who can I share this with? Who needs this information? Who needs somebody like Daniel in their corner? And especially, oh my, especially if there's somebody, Daniel, you talked about the when the spouse dies, with is it planned or unplanned? If you know
Mm.
somebody who's going through a planned, what would you call that, a planned passing? I mean, when
Well, for most clients, they're entering a hospice with a scenario like that. That was my case with Sarah.
yeah.
I've worked with many clients in that last kind of stage of What are the things we can triage in
Yeah.
this final stage, which is offers enormous help and satisfaction to the spouse who is dying.
Right. So if you are listening, if you know anybody in any of those situations, Dana would be a great resource to reach out, and you can tell from the interview his heart that he's there to serve and to help any way he can. So reach out. All the information is in the show notes that you can reach out to him. Daniel, wisestewardshipfp.com. Daniel Kopp, brother, thank you. Thanks for being my guest today, but thank you for doing what you do the way you do it.
Thank you, Michael. It's a privilege to share, and I hope it's a help.
Thanks for listening to Expert Speak every week. I appreciate it. Tune in next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.